Welcome back to the Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt, and we are back to do our Week 16 preview of the Minnesota Vikings of the NFC North champions. This week, the Minnesota Vikings will host the 8-5-1 New York Giants, Saturday, 12 o'clock Central Time on Fox. This is going to be another Saturday game, as 11 games will be happening on Saturday this weekend. I hope you all have a great Christmas, and I hope this Christmas Eve goes well, as the Minnesota Vikings are hosting the New York Giants, where they are 4.5-point favorites in maybe the most electric atmosphere in all of football, as the Minnesota Vikings will be wearing their white-on-white uniforms at home for the first time in franchise history. And hopefully, if the marketing does well, every fan at the bank will also be wearing all white, as the Minnesota Vikings will have their first whiteout game in NFL history. Snow will be coming down. There will be a sea of white in the stands. And the Minnesota Vikings, hopefully, will not disappoint in this game. Penn State, I don't know. This is a real whiteout game in the NFL right now. Right now, the New York Giants are sitting in the playoff picture. If you take a look at the playoff picture here, it's looking good. A lot on the line for both teams in this matchup. The New York Giants are 6th seeds in the NFC, have not yet clinched a playoff berth. However, it's looking more likely than not. With the win over the Minnesota Vikings, they will essentially have locked down their playoff position. But right now, they do have the Washington Commanders, Seattle Seahawks, and Detroit Lions all clipping at their heels, hoping to make a playoff run. This would be the first time the Giants would be in the playoffs since 2016. In this matchup, you have two potential coaches of the year going head-to-head, two first-year coaches who have turned their franchise around. I mean, looking at both these coaches right now, Kevin O'Connell, in my opinion, I might be biased saying this, but in my opinion, he should be the coach of the year for the NFL. And as for Brian Daboll, he's looking like the Mike Vrabel of the NFC. What I mean by this is he's taking a subpar roster and leading them to the playoffs. Titans last year were the number 1 seed in the entire NFL, number 1 seed in the AFC. And realistically, if you take a look at the roster, top down, didn't look like a number 1 seed roster, but Mike Vrabel is just that guy. He is just that guy when it comes to being a head coach. And Brian Daboll is looking like that as well. I'm going to quickly slide this here. I mean, I did say Brian Daboll and Kevin O'Connell should be we're up there when it comes to coaching candidates for the Minnesota Vikings. One of my few hot takes that actually lived up to be aged like wine. As for the Minnesota Vikings, this is a big game for the Vikings as well. Currently sitting at the number 2 seed in the NFC, are looking to take over the number 1 seed. Now, as of right now, Vikings have a 1% chance of being the number 1 seed in the NFC, where they would get a first round bye, just simply because with the tiebreaker the Eagles and Cowboys have over the Vikings, this would mean the Vikings would have to win out and the Eagles would have to lose out in order for the Vikings to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Right now, it is looking possible, though. Jalen Hurts is unlikely going to play the next 2 matchups for the Eagles and maybe won't play for the rest of the season. This could help the Minnesota Vikings to win a first round bye. It's possible. It might say a 1% chance, but it's possible. After this week, I'm hoping the Vikings continue to stay in the number 1 seed hunt, as the Eagles do play the Dallas Cowboys, who are tough. You know who else is tough? The Minnesota Vikings, who are on a 4-game win streak. And then now for the injury report. The Minnesota Vikings currently only have 3 players in the injury report, which is great news for the Minnesota Vikings. To have Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw both playing in this game is massive. Those are 2 young guys on this Minnesota Vikings offense that have really impacted this team since they've entered the league. Garrett Bradbury, currently questionable to play, did not participate with a back injury once again. He did miss the last 2 weeks, where we saw Austin Schlottmann step out there. You can see Austin Schlottmann's a veteran center, and he's perfectly fine, capable of being a starting center in the NFL, and he's perfectly fine if Garrett Bradbury does not play in this game once more. Brian Asamoah and Eric Kendricks, 2 off-ball linebackers who've been great for the Minnesota Vikings defense, are questionable to play, both limited participants this week. Having Justin Jefferson play in this game is huge, because as I've mentioned, if the Vikings want to keep their number 1 seed hopes alive, they need Jefferson in this game. Right now, Jefferson is 9 yards shy of breaking Randy Moss's single season franchise record with the Minnesota Vikings, which, spoiler alert, when he plays in this game, he's probably going to get at least 9 yards. I think that's more likely than not going to be the case. On top of this, I mean, if he gets 75 yards in this game, over 75 yards in this game, he'll be top 10 all-time single season in receiving. And he's 23 years old. Going on to the New York Giants injury report. For the Giants, they have 4 starters currently on the injury report, with, in my opinion, the biggest one being Adoree Jackson, their starting corner, who's been great this season for the Giants. He has not participated this week due to a knee injury, and if he does miss time in this game, it would be huge loss for the New York Giants, as essentially Adoree Jackson is the Patrick Peterson for the Giants, because outside of Patrick Peterson, outside of Adoree Jackson, they really don't have a next man up. So they're hoping that he does play in this game, and they can have at least somebody, some talented guy going up against Justin Jefferson in this game. Looking at it for the rest of the guys, Evan Neal is questionable to play in this game. Limited participant with a shoulder injury. He's their rookie 7th overall draft pick. Hasn't been all that great. I mean, he is a rookie, but let's be honest, Alabama offensive linemen typically don't look as good in the NFL, and we're seeing this with Evan Neal as well. Still, top 10 draft picks, Kayvon Thibodeau did not participate, or limited participant with a elbow injury this week, the 5th overall draft pick. I'm sure they're hoping they could have got Sauce Gardner with one of those picks. Nothing against Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, it is earlier in their career, but Sauce Gardner's been dominant in New York at MetLife Bank Stadium, just not in Giants uniform. Leonard Williams, questionable to play in this game. Limited participant with a knee injury. Leonard Williams is an absolute dog. If he does not play in this game, this would be also a huge loss. Losing Adoree Jackson and Leonard Williams would be a huge loss for this Giants defense, and they're definitely hoping those two players can play, because the Vikings don't have a response for Leonard Williams whatsoever. And then outside of these guys, the Giants also have 10 players on IR. I mean, once again, just showing why Brian Daboll is a great head coach, and Kevin O'Connell. These are both two unbelievably good first-year head coaches, both on the Giants and Minnesota Vikings sideline. Brian Daboll, like I mentioned, kind of the Mike Vrabel of the NFC right now, to take kind of a subpar roster. You look at the roster top down, doesn't look all that great. It looks middle of the pack, yet they're in the playoff picture and very likely going to be in the playoffs this season for the first time since 2016 for the New York Giants. Looking at it for the Minnesota Vikings and Giants in this game, what can we expect? Once again, and I feel like a broken record saying this, but we can expect another high-scoring game. Every week for the Minnesota Vikings, the Vikings offense seems to put up numbers, but somehow they're trailing. And this is why in this game we could expect the same story as the Giants offense. I know they have one of the worst receiving cores in the league due to injuries that they've seen, and also trading away Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay being one of the worst free agent signings in NFL history. They have one of the worst receiving cores in the league. But it really doesn't matter, because their run game is that good. Vanilla Vic, a.k.a. Danny Dimes, a.k.a. Daniel Jones, whatever you want to call him, can move the ball with his legs. And that's why the Minnesota Vikings defense has an agenda in this game to stop Vanilla Vic from scrambling with the ball. Oh yeah, they have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, the comeback player of the year. Great story for Saquon Barkley. I love to see him bouncing back, but please, Barkley, can you just have a bad day in this game? Minnesota Vikings defense right now, dead last in yards allowed per game. I mean, we just had a bad day to the Colts offense, and the Colts offense didn't even have Jonathan Taylor in that game. So now going up against the Giants offense, who can run the ball way better than the Colts were able to do last week, should be a huge red flag for the Minnesota Vikings defense. On top of this, not only are the Vikings dead last in yards allowed per game, but they allowed a lot of points too, as the Minnesota Vikings are 28th in points allowed per game. Feels like the only bright spot on this Minnesota Vikings defense is in the red zone. There is something about this red zone defense that makes the Vikings so good, which, I mean, you have to respect them. It feels like every week the AFC or NFC Special Teams Player of the Week is whatever kicker played the Minnesota Vikings. So let's hoping it's not Graham Gano this week as well, because whatever kicker plays the Vikings looks good. And then on to the New York Giants, we can just expect them to run the ball all through this Minnesota Vikings defense. I know the Vikings defense gets bashed a lot in the pass protection, but realistically, you can run the ball in the Vikings defense if you want to too. And I'm hoping this story does change. Obviously, I don't want to see us allow over 150 rushing yards in this game. But we're playing a New York Giants offense that is getting 146 rushing yards per game, which is unbelievable due to Danny Dimes and due to Saquon Barkley. And then this leads me on to my next thing. The key on defense for the Minnesota Vikings, if they want to get the better of this Giants offense, is they have to stop the Danny scramble. Okay, Vanilla Vic, as they call him, might not be the best runner on their offense, but when he runs the ball, their offense looks great. If you can stop the Danny scramble, Saquon Barkley might still get 130 rushing yards in this game. That's fine. We can expect that's going to be the case. But just stopping this guy from scrambling is going to help the Minnesota Vikings win this game by a long shot. And I'm looking specifically at the guys who are standing up. I'm looking at Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter on the edge. They have to stop this guy from moving on the edge. And then Eric Kendricks and Jordan Hicks should stop him up the middle. These guys have to have a good day. And I continue to say this, and I simply be because I lost a lot of my faith in this Vikings secondary, but I still have so much faith in these four guys. Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Eric Kendricks, and Jordan Hicks should not be having this bad of a second half as they're having for the Vikings. After an incredible first half for the Minnesota Vikings defense, these guys were so good. Since then, they've just fallen off. And I'm waiting for these guys to come back because there is no reason why I should ever turn on the TV and see Eric Kendricks miss an open field tackle to a quarterback. This has not been a good season when it comes to Eric Kendricks. At least not good when you're comparing him to his normal seasons. You can say the same for Zadarius Smith. You can say the same for Danielle Hunter and Jordan Hicks, who all right now have been captains in the past or present and have been in Pro Bowls, have been first and second team All-Pros, yet this season, for some reason, when playing together, have not been all that great. Zadarius Smith has taken a huge step back, and we're just looking at him stopping this guy on the edge. If this does happen, and Saquon Barkley is the only player on that offense who gets close, near 100 yards, I believe the Vikings defense will walk away. I believe this Vikings team will walk away with a win. Key on offense, and this is the biggest thing because the Vikings offense is incredible, establishing the run. I say this a lot for the Minnesota Vikings because everybody seems to kind of dismiss how important the run game is for this team. You look at all of the best drives the Vikings have done this season. You have at least 2 first down runs from Dalvin Cook in those drives. You need to establish the run if you want your passing game to look as good as we are hoping they can look. For this reason, using CJ Ham, using our boy Hammer Time in the I formation has been an incredible recipe for success for this Vikings. Using Johnny Mundt, getting going in the run game has helped the Vikings out tremendously. And still, target Justin Jefferson 10 times in this game. Target Jefferson however much you want to target him, over 10 times in this game. Yes, do that. Great. He should not be the only player in your offense who is having a good day. Because from what we've seen from the Minnesota Vikings in the past, when does the Vikings offense look the best? The Vikings offense looks the best when Dalvin Cook looks the best first. If Dalvin Cook is off to a good day in the run game, if the Vikings backfield, not even just Dalvin Cook, if the Vikings backfield gets going in the run game, the pass game looks amazing. The entire offense looks amazing. There is something special about the run game for the Minnesota Vikings that we seem to dismiss because we give a lot of the credit to Justin Jefferson for this offense, when realistically, running the ball helps the pass game so much. And this is why if Dalvin Cook can get going in the run game, then this is going to help out Justin Jefferson from breaking the all-time record. Also on top of this, like I mentioned, the Giants are allowing over 150 rushing yards per game. So please, Dalvin Cook, have a great day. I mean, we've seen some bad days from Dalvin Cook. We've seen some bad fumbles from Dalvin Cook this season in the last 2 games. As a whole, I believe teams have kind of forgot how good Dalvin Cook is. He's 4 years in a row with over 1,000 rushing yards. And then on top of this, Dalvin Cook, this is the first time he's going to start 15 games in a season. So hats off to him. I know he's overcome some huge injuries, but that is great to see. Bold prediction of the week for the Minnesota Vikings. I believe the Vikings are still going to stay in the 1-seed competition. Right now, looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, it's looking doubtful that Jalen Hurts will play against the Cowboys, and they'll probably need him against that Cowboys defense in order to win that game. We're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, it's the Cowboys. They have bad weeks just about every other week. So still, I mean, I'm not going to cheer for the Cowboys, but I will cheer against the Eagles, and I will cheer for the Vikings. And I believe after this week, the Vikings won't just have a 1% chance of getting the 1 seed, as maybe down the line, a miracle will happen. We've seen some miracles in Minnesota so far, so let's hope we do get the first round bye in the playoffs. Final prediction, I do have the Vikings winning this game, obviously. 34-28, a good win over the New York Giants at home. And our Christmases will be white. I hope you all have an amazing Christmas weekend, as the Minnesota Vikings should win, the Eagles should lose, and Christmas should be amazing in Minnesota. Have a great weekend.